What's going on, bottom line viewers? It's Mitch back here with another NFL rankings video. In this video, I rank the top 32 running backs entering the 2021 NFL season. That is my personal preference on who are the best running backs in the NFL. This is just one man's opinion, but this is my list, going in depth on each and every one of my picks. The way that I order this list is based on a fantasy draft, so to speak. If I were the GM of every NFL team, which 32 running backs would be at the top of my board? Before I give you my 32 best running backs in the NFL, make sure that you do spike that like button. Don't forget to subscribe to the Bottom Line View for more rankings in the NFL entering 2021 just like this. And get in that comment section and let me know what you think of my list. Do you think I am an absolute genius, or do you think I'm an absolute idiot? Let me know, and let's get into this list. At number 32, I have Kenyan Drake. Kenyan Drake, formerly of the Arizona Cardinals, now of the Las Vegas Raiders, where he'll play a top backup role in the league behind Josh Jacobs. Kenyan Drake, I've always loved his well-rounded game. I always felt he was underrated with Miami. The receiving skills out of the backfield, the explosive ability running the football. But he's had a lot of inconsistencies. Moments he looks electric and brilliant and just one of the top backs in the game, really. And that's what I saw last year in Arizona, his first season in Arizona, initially getting there, providing a spark to the offense, providing a burst to the backfield that David Johnson wasn't bringing them. And this year, it was a complete disappointment. He wasn't very physical. He wasn't making a ton of guys miss in the open field, doing anything extra that an ordinary back could do. Drake just didn't get the most out of himself in that role in Arizona. Hopefully in Vegas it will be better for him, but I always feel like he is a borderline starter, a guy that can start if need be because he has a well-rounded game, but I think his years have passed of being in his prime athletically and speed-wise, which was really the difference maker earlier in his career. At number 31, I have the Gus Edwards of the Baltimore Ravens, one of the most underrated runners of the football in the sport. Gus Edwards has averaged 5 yards per carry through his first 3 seasons. I believe all of them have come along with 700 yards on the ground. And yes, he's never played really a primary role. Mark Ingram was there for a time. He did get his shine early as a rookie, but then J.K. Dobbins was drafted, so he's always kind of been looked at as a change of pace. What I love about Gus Edwards is his burst through the hole in combination with his power. He's very difficult to bring down, and he's a perfect match for Lamar Jackson because Lamar Jackson brings that elusiveness and quickness, and Gus is just no nonsense. He gets up the field and he's gonna run you over if he gets a chance. He may even run by you. He has that kind of underrated speed. So Gus Edwards is somebody that I think could start for a lot of teams, but with Baltimore having a rotation of many backs where they love to run the ball, he is a perfect blend for their power scheme. At number 30, I have Chase Edmonds, now the Arizona Cardinals' supposed starter. I spoke about Kenyan Drake. I do believe Chase Edmonds is the better player, and if I'm being honest with you, I believe the Cardinals are better off with treating Edmonds as their starter. The reason is I think Chase Edmonds is a very dynamic receiver. I was very impressed going back and watching him last year and seeing the plethora of routes he can run all over the field, whether that's in the backfield or as a receiver in the slot, even split out on the outside. Of course, he can take screens and do things with those, but he's quick, he's elusive. He reminds me a lot of James White, and while he's not the prototype for a bell cow back, He doesn't have to be because of the value he brings as a receiver, a route runner out of the backfield, and he can make people miss in the open field when he gets the ball in his hands. So Chase Edmonds is a nice complement to what they want to do in Arizona with Kyler Murray and their spread game. At number 29, Clyde Edwards-Helaire of the Kansas City Chiefs. CEH is a back that I loved coming out of last year's NFL draft, and I thought he found the perfect landing spot with the Kansas City Chiefs at the end of the first round. I thought his rookie season was slightly disappointing because of the expectations that were put on him from the fantasy community more than anything. I thought he was overdrafted, and therefore it was a little disappointing, but when you watch him and what he provided the Chiefs, I thought he provided real good power as a stout, kind of shorter, stocky back that can really make people miss. The first guy nearly always misses Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and then he can catch the football out of the backfield, obviously making people miss doing that, and really that power to maintain balance, run through tackles, run through contact. I thought that was the most important thing from his rookie season. And if he can just provide a little bit more burst, a little bit more playmaking ability, a little bit more big play ability, I think he'll up his game this year. I think he's somebody that's just well-rounded, nice to have because he can play in every situation. He can play in between, outside the tackles, and obviously as a receiver. So good back, just not special. At number 28, Mike Davis, formerly of the Carolina Panthers and now the supposed starter of the Atlanta Falcons. Mike Davis, I thought, had low-key a very, very good season last year for the Panthers, right? Christian McCaffrey went out with an injury. That offensive line isn't really known as being one of the best in the game. But despite that, Mike Davis contributed not just as a runner, but also surprisingly as a fairly good receiver out of the backfield, something we never really saw him do in his days with the Seahawks, the Bears, or wherever he's been in the NFL. It just felt like Mike Davis was kind of a bowling ball running back that was like, for Panthers fans out there, a Jonathan Stewart. But he actually showed that he could be that Chris Carson light. So he has a well-rounded game that I feel is worthy of being one of the lesser starters in football. What I really like about Mike Davis is not necessarily his breakaway speed, because he's not going to burn you down the field, but what he can do is run you over, run through contact, provide a lot of missed tackles, and just a physical nature to your football team that I think is needed on every single NFL team. He is somebody that I wouldn't want necessarily as my starter, but he's somebody I'd love as my second running back because he can provide power, strength, contact balance, and you know he can play in any situation if he has to. At number 27, Leonard Fournette of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Some people may be surprised by how low he is on this list because the last time we saw Leonard Fournette, he was absolutely tearing up the NFL in the NFL playoffs. And that's the thing with Leonard Fournette. He is extremely streaky, especially when it comes to playoff Lenny. We know he can turn it on, and we know he can dominate when he needs to. And that's the thing I love about Leonard Fournette. He is a gamer. He has special qualities to his game that make him very, very intriguing for any NFL team. He has great speed for a big back. He has great power. He can run you over. And he combines speed and power to blend into a dominant force when he gets going. But the problem with Fournette is he has to get going, and he has to have that confidence, and he has to have a line that's really working for him. Fournette is not very good with his feet. He can't really change direction very well. He can't really go to one hole, jump cut to the other hole, and just go. He's more see the lane. If it's there, ooh, he's explosive. He can hit it. He can make a play. He's actually a fairly good receiver. He had inconsistencies earlier last year catching the football, but really in the playoffs, he was one of their most important players in that regard as well for Tom Brady. So I gain respect for him there. He's tough as nails. He is a big game player, and I really like Leonard Fournette. but last year there were also times where he was arguably one of the worst starting backs in the league. So the up and down, the inconsistency, that's why I have him so low on this list. At number 26, Nyheim Hines of the Indianapolis Colts. I really like Hines a lot. I think he kind of reminds me a little bit of Austin Eckler with the Chargers. He has explosive speed, balance, and ability to make people miss through power and elusiveness, agility, but also great hands, great route running ability. Here's the thing with Hines. He's not exactly like, I would say, a Christian McCaffrey, Alvin Kamara, James White in terms of his route running tree. Like, he doesn't do a lot of elaborate type of receiving, but he's very effective out of the backfield, taking simple patterns, like slip little passes out of the backfield where Phillip Rivers would just dump it to him, and then he can make a play with it. So Hines is very, very crafty in that way. He's also an excellent shotgun runner, right? Gets the ball at a shotgun, and he can burst up the field very quickly, and obviously, we've seen him break many big plays in the receiving game and in the running game. I think he's one of the most underrated talents in the NFL at this position, and I think you could argue he could be higher on this list, but because he's not really a true number one back, I think that's why I have him here, but I do really like his game and think he'll continue to get better this season. At number 25, Damien Harris of the New England Patriots. Damien Harris has been a breath of fresh air for the Patriots. Sony Michel was very disappointing in 2019, and then 2020 came around, and we were wondering who that back would be. It ended up being Damien Harris. Damien Harris averaged 5 yards per carry last season, and I would say he is a bowling ball running back. He has excellent, very underrated feet. He is very, very good vision-wise, seeing the lane, hitting it with his quick little feet, and then bursting through the hole. Once he's through that hole, he's also very difficult to take down in the open field because he's stocky, powerful, and he fits the Patriots' power game perfectly because he sets the tempo for their offense. With the Patriots being one of the best run offenses in football last year, and I expect it to be the same this year, a lot of that is going to come from Damien Harris on the first two downs specifically. Where Damien Harris is not as good is as a receiver. We haven't really seen him develop as a receiver, which was the same problem with Sony Michel. He is a two-down player. Obviously, James White does his thing on third down, but for these rankings, I can only rank you so high if you have a clear deficiency in your game. So Harris, as good as he is at taking handoffs on first and second down, he needs to prove that he can be a more reliable receiver to move higher up on this list. At number 24, J.K. Dobbins. Dobbins, Harris, very close to me, but what separated Dobbins from Harris was that explosive speed. Break through that hole, and it's a home run. That is J.K. Dobbins. He is a home run hitter, which is perfect for Lamar Jackson in this offense because that little second that a defense has to pay attention to Lamar Jackson, boom, J.K. Dobbins gets it, and he's through the hole, and he's gone. And he also has pretty good elusiveness in the open field, although I would like to see more of that from him in his second year. He provided 6 yards per carry in his rookie season, which is absolutely phenomenal. The thing is with Baltimore, those running backs are always going to thrive more so than others because of the presence of Lamar and the way their offense is structured. They are a run-first team. They have a very good offensive line, run blocking up front, and that scheme is perfect for these backs. So I take that into account, but Dobbins really gets the most of those yards, where a guy like Mark Ingram wasn't necessarily doing that because he lacked the explosive ability. Dobbins could take his game really to the next level if he starts to provide a little bit as a pass catcher, running routes out of the backfield and providing that little third down option for Lamar Jackson. If he can do that, he's definitely a top 20 running back, and then he could even go maybe higher than that. At number 23, I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers true number one back. This is the guy I think is their best back on their team. That's Ronald Jones. I said that all year last year, and I'll continue to say that. Ronald Jones is their most talented runner on this team. He really is. Ronald Jones has a very rare blend of pure speed and also excellent power. I'm sure if you looked it up, Ronald Jones provided broken tackle rates in the NFL. One of the highest broken tackle rates in the NFL. That was Ronald Jones. But not only that, this guy scored, I think, a 99-yard touchdown. That's the type of speed he has. When he gets to the second level, it's go time. It's danger time for a defense because he has rare running back speed you simply do not see from a lot of players. And when you combine that with the ability to break tackles, it makes him just a real handful for defenses. Now, like these other backs near him on this list, he's not very well-rounded. He doesn't have great hands. He's not a reliable receiver, which actually caused Leonard Fournette to become their starting running back because Brady trusted him more as a receiver, and Fournette was more of an every down player. But Ronald Jones, don't get it twisted, he is the better runner of the two, and that's why I'd take him higher on this list. At number 22, I have Melvin Gordon of the Denver Broncos. Despite the rumors that Melvin Gordon may be replaced this season in Denver, I'm still a fan of what he can do on the football field, and I liked what I saw in 2020. Melvin Gordon is still one of those real good blends at the running back position. He still has good enough speed to be dangerous to break in the open field for a big play. He has good hands, he's a reliable receiver, pretty good power, and all the parts of his game are pretty good. I just think maybe he's lost a little bit in terms of speed. Maybe he's not quite that player he was with the Chargers earlier in his career, but he's still good enough to be a starter in this league. There's no doubt about it. And I think if he was on a better team, he'd get a little bit more recognition, but it feels like he's just become a little boring now. But Melvin Gordon's still a good player, don't get me wrong. I would like to see him break some more tackles here and there, but the speed, the power, those things along with the reliable nature in the pass game still make him a viable option in this league as a starting running back, and I still have him at number 22. At number 21, Cam Akers. Now, almost the exact opposite of Melvin Gordon, where maybe people are sleeping on Melvin Gordon a little bit in terms of he's just become a little boring. Cam Akers is the exact opposite because everybody is hyping up Cam Akers to the moon, and I can't really disagree. Cam Akers is going to have an absolutely huge season this year, and he's going to make this ranking probably look pretty dumb. But I'm ranking it based on entering the season and not based on what I project their stats to be. This is not a fantasy list. Cam Akers is going to be very productive for the Rams. He's in a system that produces great rushing stats, and I think Cam Akers will follow that lineage in Sean McVay's offense. Cam Akers, the thing I love about him is the ability to make people miss in the open field with the little stop move, little hesitation, the little hezzy, and then he comes back and he just makes a guy look absolutely silly. He's done that consistently, and he can do that in the backfield, and he can do that in the open field, which I think is an equally impressive trait because you're starting out 0 to 60 and you're hesitating your defender to get through the hole, and then when you're at 60, you're still able to slow down, break, and then make that guy slow down, miss, and then keep going. So Cam Akers isn't the fastest back. He isn't super fast, but he is very elusive. He makes people look silly, and I think that is something that is absolutely valued at this position. He's also very good vision-wise. In this scheme, he seemed to elevate it last season. We saw other running backs in the Rams system last year, but none of them really compared to Akers once he got that starting spot. It was like this guy took this offense from here to here in the running game. We saw that in the playoffs. We saw that later in the season versus teams like the Patriots, the Seahawks, and etc. Cam Akers, I think, is going to ride that momentum into 2021, have a huge year. I'm still not exactly sure what he provides as a receiver, although he's not bad in that area. I think he's a good player in a real good system, which ultimately means that he's probably going to end up being higher on this list next year. Entering the top 20 at number 20, DeAndre Swift of the Detroit Lions. Now, I think AKERS will probably have better statistics than DeAndre Swift this season, but what I saw from Swift in his rookie year provided a more well-rounded game, as well as a more explosive game at the running back position. Now, all I seemingly remember from DeAndre Swift is that drop in the first week of the season, but once you get past that, get past it, Mitch. Once you get past that, you really look and you see good hands out of the backfield, an ability to be a true slot type of receiver, run receiver type routes. That was what he was hyped up to do. He provided that when he was given the opportunity to do it. Here's the thing that frustrated me about DeAndre Swift. He wasn't allowed to do it enough. He wasn't allowed to be the guy. And this season, I think he will, behind a pretty underrated offensive line. He has excellent vision, very good feet, pretty good elusiveness, and deceptive speed. He's actually faster than I gave him credit for entering the NFL. So DeAndre Swift, I think, is probably going to be underrated because he won't be playing on a very good team, but just watch him. He has the talent to be pretty special. At number 19, Antonio Gibson of the Washington football team. Gibson was somebody that was a little bit of an enigma entering the NFL season last year. People loved him in fantasy, and they were rewarded for it because Gibson was rewarded as the number one back for the Washington football team, and he looked the part. The thing that frustrates me about Gibson a little bit is he kind of plays a little bit high. He's not very low to the ground, and I think that causes him to not be able to break as many tackles as you would like, although his power is kind of deceptive in that way. Because he's taller, 6'2", and he's a former receiver, he doesn't really have that running back stature or running back body. He kind of more resembles like a Latavius Murray type, but Gibson is real good as a receiver, obviously, for obvious reasons. He's great in the screen game. Very good vision behind blockers to see a block burst and really know how to work that screen game. Also can run routes like a receiver, drags, whatever it is, crossing routes out over the middle of the field, out routes, all those sort of things. He can do that, and he can provide a mismatch versus a linebacker. He also looked better than I thought he would as a pure runner, especially in terms of his speed when he got on the open field, was pretty impressive. I think Gibson, because he entered the NFL with very little actual running back experience, he's going to just get better because he's going to learn the position better. He's going to learn some fundamentals a little bit better. That is going to take his game to the next level. So I expect big things from Gibson this season as the lead back in Washington, and his well-rounded game is valued for me, so I have him here inside the top 20. At number 18, I have James Robinson of the Jacksonville Jags. The difficulty with James Robinson is the fact that Urban Meyer, Travis Etienne, drafting him in the first round, having Carlos Hyde there, and just the rumors that Robinson won't be as involved as he was a year ago, it makes you wonder if Robinson is as good as his stats actually suggest, because he was real good last year in terms of pure numbers. So I had to turn on the tape and check to see with my eyes. And yes, he's pretty good. He's definitely worthy of being a starting running back in this league. What I really love about Robinson is his power, his low to the ground nature, where he could just move subtly. He's not super fast in the open field. He's more of a power back than anything else, but he's real difficult to bring down. He really runs with a toughness, a grit that I think is good for a lot of teams. He reminds me a little bit of like Josh Jacobs with the Raiders. They're very similar players. They're kind of smaller, not very tall, and they can break tackles excellently in the open field. Robinson also had a couple games where I remember early in the year that Thursday nighter versus Miami really provided a nice spark out of the backfield as a receiver. So he's shown he's capable in that regard as well. He was really one of the bright spots of a very bad team last season. Now, I don't think a lot of his stats were because he was simply the main ball carrier on a team that needed a guy to feed the ball. I think he actually does have some talent that's worthy of being a starter, and I'm a little disappointed that Jacksonville isn't treating him that way. At At number 17, Austin Ekeler of the Los Angeles Chargers. I've always been an absolutely huge fan of Austin Ekeler. Anybody that follows this channel knows, because a few seasons ago, when the Chargers had my man, the greatest, Danny Woodhead, in the backfield, I saw this little guy named Austin Ekeler, and I was like, that guy is good, and he's going to be good one day. And what do you know, but he ends up basically outplaying Melvin Gordon, sending him packing to Denver, and becoming their starter. Last season was supposed to be his year to break out, and he got hurt, unfortunately. I think this is the season we see the best Austin Ekeler we've ever seen. Austin Ekeler is low-key an absolute animal. I mean, this is probably one of the best conditioned football players in the NFL. He is extremely strong. I mean, pound for pound strength in the league, he must be one of the strongest in the NFL. He has excellent power for his size. Think about how small he is. He breaks a considerable amount of tackles. He has very quick feet. One of the best receivers out of the backfield in the sport, excellent in the screen game, very capable blocker. He just really doesn't have any weaknesses to his game. The only true thing I think holds back Ekeler from being like a top 10 running back is that he doesn't have great breakaway speed. He doesn't have that ability to just hit the hole and he's gone. That's not his game. He's more of a see it, make a nice little move, make a guy miss, and he's never really proven that he can be an 1,000-yard rusher, so that also kind of hurts him. But with all he gives as a receiver in combination with what he gives as a rusher, he certainly belongs in this spot. At number 16 is RAHEEM Mostert of the San Francisco 49ers. With Mostert, all I really have to say, speed. Speed, man. I mean, this guy is the fastest running back in the NFL. Bar none. Not even close. And it just jumps off the screen. Every time you watch the 49ers, there is a considerable difference between any other running back and RAHEEM Mostert's speed. It just, wow. Like, every time he gets the ball on an outside zone play, it has the potential to go 80 yards to the house. And that is a special quality that, I mean, no other running backs possess other than this guy at that level. He has legitimate track speed. Now, he's not as well-rounded or as, I guess you could say, refined as some other running backs, but because he's not the best receiver, he's not very powerful, he doesn't make a lot of guys miss, he doesn't run a lot of guys over. We've seen games where RAHEEM Mostert, if he's given good blocking and daylight, he legitimately can take over a game and win the game. So there's something to be said about that. He's perfect for the Shanahan scheme because of that speed. Because if you're given a good block, if you're given a great run play design, then that guy can take full advantage of those yards rather quickly because he can get to the field, up the field quickly. So RAHEEM Mostert, I just love his speed, adore his game. And I think this year, as long as he can stay healthy, which is also a reason he's a little bit lower, if he can, he's going to be absolutely dynamic for San Francisco this year. At number 15, the Seattle Seahawks, Chris Carson. Carson is one of the biggest grinders in the NFL. He will legitimately fight for every extra yard. That's his biggest strength, but that's also his biggest weakness. Because Chris Carson is such a grinder, such an effort player, that also gets him into trouble when it comes to injuries. He plays such a reckless style of running back that he just can't maintain a full season of health. It's just the way he is, because he plays such a physical brand of football, which I love to watch. He just can't maintain it for a full 16 games. It's unfortunate. He's a fantastic player. I love his physical brand of football. It suits the Seahawks very well. It's a nice compliment to Russell Wilson in the pass game. Pete Carroll obviously adores it. He's also underrated as a receiver, a guy after the catch that can make something happen out of the backfield. I think he does lack a little bit of elite speed to his game where he can really burst and break a big run. He doesn't do that for you, but he's gonna be one of the best short yardage backs in the game, one of the best in between the tackles backs in the game, and just physically, he's one of the guys that looks like a Greek god out there at the running back position. I just think injuries have held him back from being a great football player. At number 14, I have Kareem Hunt of the Cleveland Browns. Kareem Hunt is not a starting running back in the NFL, and despite that, he belongs in the top 15 discussion. We've seen what Kareem Hunt can do as a starting running back with the Kansas City Chiefs. He was one of the best in the sport back then. Now, I don't think he's quite that good anymore. Just a little bit of age, a little bit of wear and tear has brought him to just a top 15 running back in the league. But what I love about Kareem Hunt is that well-rounded game. Kareem Hunt is probably one of the more underrated power backs in the sport, because when you think of Kareem Hunt, you don't think of power. You think of his receiving skills. That's what you think of, especially if you play fantasy. You think of Kareem Hunt coming in on passing downs for the Browns because Nick Chubb is that supposed power back. Well, really, Nick Chubb is the speed back. He's the big play back, and Kareem Hunt is the bowling ball. Kareem Hunt rarely gets tackled by the first defender. Rarely. He always breaks tackles in the backfield, in the open field, as a receiver, as a runner. And yes, he doesn't have that next level explosiveness or speed or vision that Nick Chubb has, but he just has a unique knack for breaking tackles and absolutely bullying defenders. And then on top of that, he has excellent hands. This guy made a one-hand catch in one of these games this year. I believe it was versus Washington. He has very good route running skills. As a receiver, they can split him out wide, put him in the slot, put him in the backfield, and he is a unique threat. So I love Kareem Hunt because of that well-rounded game, along with having a rare power blend that not a lot of receiving backs have. At number 13, Miles Sanders of the Philadelphia Eagles. Miles Sanders, I really had a tough time ranking because I think from what I like of running backs, he would rank higher, but because he hasn't necessarily proven it as much as other backs on this list a little bit higher than him, I couldn't put him that high. Because Miles Sanders has dealt with some injuries, he hasn't necessarily always been available, and then for whatever reason, the Eagles haven't chosen to give this guy the freaking ball. Like, can you give the guy the ball? Like 20 times a game, I want to see Miles Sanders get the damn ball, please, because he's really good. What he is he is legitimately Saquon Barkley light. Like, that is what Miles Sanders is. He has probably top 5, like, big play ability at this position. Very good speed. He has real good elusiveness and that ability to make people miss, cut, jump cut. Like, all the things Saquon does, Miles Sanders is just a little bit worse. And that's Miles Sanders. And here's the thing with Sanders where I thought he regressed last year. He wasn't as good as a receiver. I was really impressed with him as a rookie, as a receiver, especially going down the field and making catches and all that. He had a lot of key drops, which hurt the team. And I think if he can get back to what he was as a rookie, as a receiver, that will boost him up the list. But I did feel that he was better as a runner. And I think with Jalen Hurts being their quarterback, those stats, that presence will help his stats. And I think you'll see a real good back this year in Sanders. Just please give him the ball. At number 12, I have Josh Jacobs of the Las Vegas Raiders. For a lot of people, Josh Jacobs disappointed because they expected Josh Jacobs to lead the NFL in rushing yards, be one of the top backs, all that sort of stuff. He was still pretty productive, guys. He went over, I believe, 1,100 yards this year, at least 1,000. And he did show an improvement as a receiver, which I would like to take note of, especially early in the year when it's seemingly John Gruden was calling more plays for him to get the rock in the receiving game. I'd like to see that continue in 2021, but for whatever reason, they went away from that last year, which I think actually hurt them down the stretch, but that's just my opinion. Josh Jacobs, what I love about him is he is nasty, he is fierce, He does not back down, and he will run you the F over, bro, if you are not careful. That is Josh Jacobs. He runs through contact extremely well, probably top 5 in the sport at that. And yes, doesn't have great speed, but pretty capable speed and pretty good vision as well, right? His stats per carry, all that sort of stuff. Like, he didn't have a 4 yards per carry. I get it. Some people are going to knock him for that. For me, what it shows is that he's really relied on in this offense. They love to give him the ball because they believe he's their best player. They believe he's the guy, and he is. He is. But that wears people down. That wears running backs in the modern NFL down. It's very rare that a guy is like Josh Jacobs where he can play on every snap. A bell cow role. There's just not a lot of those guys. So for that alone, it proves and provides that Josh Jacobs is worthy of this selection. And when you watch him, you'd also say, yeah, this guy's pretty damn good. At number 11, David Montgomery of the Chicago Bears. Montgomery had a surprise breakout season last year. After his rookie year, a lot of people, including myself, were a little bit down on him, but luckily he fell in my fantasy drafts, and I was able to scoop him up, and to my surprise, he was absolutely unbelievable for my team, because David Montgomery was a true bell cow back for Chicago, and despite not having a great quarterback or a very good offensive line, or really a good run scheme in general, David Montgomery really was good. In terms of that broken tackle rate that everybody spoke about coming out of college, he actually proved he could do that at the NFL level this year. His vision improved. When he was seeing things in the run game, it improved. Once they started to actually give him those runs from under center more often, and they set him up the way that he should be set up, he really thrived. He gained that confidence and he took off. He even provided more big plays than I expected from him because he's not exactly the fastest running back in the world. But great contact balance, very good feet, I believe. And he also provided he has pretty good hands too. So David Montgomery is a borderline top 10 running back. I wouldn't be mad at you if you said he was a top 10 running back. I think what I need to see is just a little bit more consistency, and he needs to provide that he isn't just a one-year wonder and is more than that rookie season. He needs to put that behind him because I think it still is lurking in the back of everybody's minds a little bit. At number 10, I have Ezekiel Elliott. And putting Zeke at number 10, I think is going to be controversial either way. I think you're rather going to say I am an absolute idiot because Zeke is definitely a top 8 running back, maybe a top 5, maybe a top 3. And there's going to be people where they say, he sucked, he was awful, he's not even a top 20 running back, what are you doing? So Zeke is definitely the most controversial running back in the NFL right now because I think a lot of people love him and a lot of people hate him, just like the team he plays for. But Ezekiel Elliott, I kind of have a feeling is going to have a big year this year. He seems to be motivated. He seems to be in better shape. And I just have a feeling we're going to see closer to the Zeke we saw a couple years ago than the one that we saw this year. I was a little bit worried last year, entering the year, that he was on a downward slope. And he is on a downward slope in terms of production, in terms of overall stats, and just overall game. Right? That explosive element from Zeke early in his career that was special has faded a little bit. And you didn't really see it last year where he was breaking big runs off. And his offensive line, it's got a little bit worse every year. So people are like, oh, it was his offensive line the whole time. Not necessarily. I still saw a lot of good from Zeke last year. The fumbles aside, which were awful, atrocious, he still is one of the most nuanced runners in the league. I think what's underrated about Zeke, and which is why he's still a top 10 running back, is he does everything very well. He's a very smart running back, right? Has very good vision to see a hole, kind of never has a bad run, really. Like, Zeke is one of those running backs that's actually a lot like Emmitt Smith, where like everyone was like, why is Emmitt Smith the leading rushing leader of all time? And I heard Bill Belichick say this once, and he said, Emmitt Smith had this ability to get a yard when there was no yards there. And that's exactly what Zeke does, right? Sometimes there's nothing there. The play is blown up and Zeke just kind of maneuvers his way into 3 yards. And for a lot of running backs, that play would have been a loss. But with Zeke, it's still a okay play. And I thought we saw that a lot last year because his offensive line sucked. And I thought he overcame that a lot in certain moments where you're like, wow, that was really impressive, even though it's not a big game. So if you're just looking at the stats, Zeke has declined. But if you're looking at the actual game by game and you go through the highlights, you'll actually see that Zeke is still one of the most refined and detailed backs in the league. He's also very good in all aspects of the sport. He can block, he can catch, he can run routes well, and he's very good as a power back. As long as he can get that speed back, he can enter that top 5 category. And I think with an improved offensive line and Dak back, he will definitely prove me right that he's a top 10 running back still. At number 9, Jonathan Taylor. So you know how I was saying Zeke is like one of the most refined backs in the league? Well, Jonathan Taylor isn't that. But what Jonathan Taylor is an absolute freaking animal. That's what he is. Jonathan Taylor is one of the fastest running backs in the NFL and also one of the most difficult running backs to tackle. So when you combine those two things, you have one of the biggest beasts that is at the position. Like, Jonathan Taylor doesn't really catch the ball very much. Jonathan Taylor doesn't really make a lot of people miss, but he just gets the ball and he's like, no nonsense, cut here, cut there, boom. Like 5 yards, 6 yards, 7 yards, 8 yards, and what do you know, 40 yards. Jonathan Taylor is one of the most explosive offensive weapons in the sport. And we saw that right away last year. I get it, he has a good offensive line, but he makes the most of those yards to be gained on the field. And that's the true indication of a great running back. So Jonathan Taylor, I think the sky's the limit. He's an excellent runner, one of the best in the sport. If he can contribute a little bit more as a receiver, although Nyheim Hines does that, as I've already mentioned, Taylor can only get higher on this list. But I wouldn't be surprised if he led the NFL in rushing one of these seasons. At number 8, Aaron Jones of the Green Bay Packers. Aaron Jones, very explosive. That's the element I like. If he can get going, if you can provide a little bit of daylight, which is why he's so good in this scheme. Because in this scheme, if you have that fast guy that can make a cut and go, like a Dalvin Cook, like a Mostert, as I've discussed, these guys can really make the most out of these outside zone schemes, which is what the Packers like to do in the Shanahan, LaFleur-esque type of offense. And Jones fits it to a T. And he's really shown that he can be a great explosive runner in these elements. He's not the greatest power back, right? He's not going to really be the best at getting you a yard or two if you need it. But if you need a big play, a big run, he'll consistently get that. Which is why I think Aaron Jones has never been a bell cow, so to speak. Like Jamal Williams has been there, now A.J. Dillon's there. You're going to get the most touches, but not all the touches. And I think a lot of that has to do with he's kind of thin. He's not the biggest frame in the world. He can't take the beating, but he does provide that spark that many other running backs in the league just can't. But he's also a very good receiver, right? He's very good. Good hands, can run a lot of routes. I think what he does that separates himself as a receiver is he makes a lot of plays down the field as a receiver. We've seen that in a number of seasons, not just last year, but a number of years. And I think Jones has just proven the last few years that he is a top 10 running back and deserves his spot here at number 8. At number 7, I have Joe Mixon of the Cincinnati Bengals. I love Joe Mixon's game, man. I love Joe Mixon's game. He is a very, very good football player that I don't think gets the credit because he plays on the Cincinnati Bengals. And let's be honest, not only do the Bengals suck, but their offensive line has been an absolute disaster for many of the seasons that Joe Mixon has played. And Joe Mixon, despite that, has still contributed to be one of the most productive running backs in the entire sport. I think he's just going to get better statistically because Joe Burrow is going to be there consistently. The offensive line should improve with time. And what I love about Joe Mixon is doesn't have a flaw to his game. His stop-start ability is very good. Very good stop-start ability. Like in a kind of Le'Veon Bell, like 2016-esque type of way where Le'Veon would like run to the left, stop, come back. Like, then he would, it almost felt like he's in slow motion. That's kind of what Joe Mixon does. He like stops, back, go, stop, go, stop, go. Like, that's what Joe Mixon can do. He can really just maneuver the way he likes. He has very, very, very good feet and very good balance and just overall vision of the football field. And that helps him behind the line, and once he gets through the line, to be able to make people miss and also to maximize the yards. He doesn't have Aaron Jones' speed, but he has a little bit more power for sure. He has a very good ability to catch the football, but that stop-start, quick little jab here and there, that is what I really value from Joe Mixon. He always maximizes what's there, which is why he is a good running back, productive running back, despite having a bad supporting cast. At number 6, Nick Chubb of the Cleveland Brownies. Nick Chubb might be one of the best, if not the best, pure runner in the NFL. I think there might only be one guy that is better in terms of simply running the ball than Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb just doesn't really do anything other than run the ball. Like, he doesn't catch the ball. He kind of has no hands, to be honest. But what does Nick Chubb do well? I think when people think of Nick Chubb, they think of like this big fridge running down the field. I've said this before, but I'll say it again. Nick Chubb has no wasted movements. Nick Chubb is like an absolute robot. You see this guy running, he's like a robot. He moves down the field in such a synchronized fashion. It is an absolute beautiful thing to watch. It's incredible. Nick Chubb is a tank running full speed ahead, and he's one of the fastest open field ball carriers in the league. There are a number of big plays that Nick Chubb has under his belt, and that's because of the no wasted movement, the no nonsense approach. And he can stiff arm you to the ground if need be in the open field. I just think Nick Chubb is perfect for what the Browns do, and he's provided the last few years that he can absolutely create a big running play on anybody he plays. You really can't stop this guy on a consistent basis because he's going to break a big play at some point. And that's why he is a top back in the game. Entering the top 5 at number 5, that is Alvin Kamara of the New Orleans Saints. Some people think Kamara is the best running back in the NFL, but I certainly believe he is a top 5 running back in the NFL. If I were to say why isn't he the best, I honestly just don't feel like I fear him like other players in terms of when he's running the ball. Because I don't think Kamara really has like game-changing speed or really elusiveness for that matter. I think Kamara has benefited from Drew Brees and Sean Payton and a great offensive line for sure. But Kamara more is good at running the ball because he has really decisive feet, no wasted motion, a lot like Nick Chubb, but also probably the best vision of any running back in the game, and that allows him to thrive a ton in this offense. I think he has very good patience. Like, you see that in certain plays. He just has this confidence to his game where it's like he's in slow motion. Everybody else is in slow motion, right? And he sees it, and he can always pick the correct path. And that's why he is one of the most productive running backs in the NFL. As well as the fact that he's maybe the best receiver at the position. I think there might be one guy that's a little bit better than him, but he certainly has provided that he can do that at an elite level. He also is maybe the best screen back in the game. So he has very many elements here that make him a special talent. I just think the talent that holds him back from being, in my opinion, like the best is that he doesn't have like a consistent power game. He's not a bell cow, 25 carries, grind it out, wear you down, break a big run type of back. He's more of a limited touches but maximum results type of back. That's why he's number 5. At number 4, my favorite running back in the NFL, you see his jersey here, that is Saquon Barkley. I cannot wait for Saquon to take the field in 2021 because I've said it, I'll say it again, guys. Absolutely game-changing ability, game-breaking talent, special highlight tapes. That's this guy. I've said it, I'll say it again. He is the best running back when healthy. The thing is, Saquon's not been healthy, so I can't rank him higher than this because I have too much respect for the other 3 guys on this list to put him that high. I put him number 1 last year. I was pissed because he got hurt, so I'm not doing it, okay? In case you forgot, because you may have not seen it in a while, what makes Saquon special, his agility and his quad strength. That lower body strength that he has, that balance that he has to quickly stop and go, quickly cut from left to right, that is where Saquon is next level. Like next level. Because he can be in the left hole and then he can jump to the other side of the line and break for a big run instantly, without a wasted motion. And not a lot of running backs have that type of ability to do that. He also is just different in the open field, like different speed. Secondaries fear this guy running down the field. And that's also a big reason he's, in my opinion, when he's healthy, the best. We'll see if that speed returns. He has good vision, but it's really tough to tell because his offensive line a lot of the times is so bad that a lot of the times he's dealing with absolute crap. So he has to just try to kind of avoid everybody, be elusive, and make something out of nothing. And we've seen real special plays when that happens. He also is an excellent receiver. Very underrated in that regard, where I think he should be used more. And just simply getting the ball in this guy's hands has benefited Daniel Jones. So Saquon Barkley, I love his talent. Just stay healthy, man, and you might be back at the top of this list next year. Entering the top 3. At number 3, I have Dalvin Cook, which many times last year, I said Dalvin Cook was the best running back in the league. Now, I've slightly changed my mind on that, but you could certainly argue that. I'm not going to sit here and say you can't, because Dalvin Cook is awesome. Dalvin Cook, in that zone scheme of Minnesota, is a perfect fit because of his combination of burst, which is the biggest thing I see in his game, and vision. Once he sees something, he is the quickest to transition into his game-breaking speed, right? So he might not have the full speed of Saquon or the full speed of MOSTERT, but when he sees it, his 0 to 60 transition acceleration is the best in the league. That's why I think on every carry he gets the football, he's so dangerous, because if he just sees that split second, he can go and make a big play. And that's what I love about Dalvin Cook's game. Pretty good receiver, not anything real special there, but that vision, that speed, that burst is also very prominent in the screen game, because that's literally what a screen is. You get the ball, you wait for the blocks, and then you go. And that's also where he makes a lot of big plays. So Dalvin Cook, that combination, that is just what makes him one of the best running backs in the league. At number 2, Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey, for many people, may still be the number 1 running back in the NFL. And I wouldn't argue that, because I think if you're looking at a well-rounded game, he probably is the best running back in the game, because he's the best receiver for sure, right? His route running ability out of the backfield is awesome. His hands, his consistency. He could have played slot receiver, in all honesty, if he wanted to. His dad is a former receiver. I'm sure he could have done it. What impresses me about McCaffrey is how much he has grown as a power runner. His power is extremely impressive. You don't usually see a guy this small and known as a guy that's an excellent receiver that's also equally able to break tackles at the rate that he does. He also has excellent feet, good vision, and pretty darn good speed as well, right? Christian McCaffrey is a complete game. Good blocker, good receiver, good runner. Nothing else really has to be said. He should probably be the first overall pick in a lot of fantasy drafts because of that, and he's arguably the best running back in the league. But my number one running back entering 2021 is Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry is the number one back. Not just because he ran for 2,000 yards, which that's extraordinary, especially in 2021, but he is the most dangerous running back in the league. And I know I've said that many times in this video, but I mean it in a different way this time around. I don't mean it in terms of like burst or like big play capability, although Derrick Henry has that. I mean it in terms of like when you're game planning for every running back in the league, which one are you most afraid of? Or even as a fan, if you're playing this running back, which one are you most afraid of that they could just beat you? That they could just win the game by themselves? And with the position being not very valuable in my eyes, the guy that can bring the most value as a runner is Derrick Henry. The guy that can change a game because you have to really resort attention to him is Derrick Henry. And he's proven that. He doesn't provide value in the same way a KAMARA or a McCaffrey does, but it doesn't matter. His special combination, all-time Hall of Fame combination of speed and power, size and speed is, I mean, we may have never seen it in the NFL other than Derrick Henry. It's that crazy. It's that crazy. His ability to set a tone, his ability to provide an identity for the Tennessee Titans. That is why he's the best running back in the NFL. It's not because he catches the ball, because he doesn't. It's not because he is the best runner, but he is. It's because of all those external elements that make up importance to the position. And that's why he's my number one running back. All right, guys. Hope you enjoyed my top 32 running backs in the NFL, my rankings of the top 32 from number 32 to number 1. Let me know where I was right. Let me know where I was wrong. It's Mitch. Make sure you check out the rest of my NFL rankings this offseason. Peace.